Okay, well, I'm delighted now to be joined by a lady by the name of Mary Gordon, who is has been on with us now before, but quite a few years ago, well, 3 or 4 years ago, 3 I think. Mary Gordon, who is, now I'm going to read all the letters after her name and hope she can explain because I'm totally confused. but it all sounds very impressive. So Mary Gordon, CMONIONLLDDLTT, but she's also the founder and president of Roots of Empathy. She's joining us this morning from Toronto in Canada, an award-winning social entrepreneur, educator, author, child advocate and parenting expert who has created programs informed by the power of empathy. Good morning to you, Mary. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Eileen. Just grand, thank you.
I'm laughing now. You're actually from originally Newfoundland, but living in Toronto now at the minute. Well, you're living, but you do a lot of travelling. I know you're travelling like a lot of the time. The majority of your time you do spend travelling, but you're kind of staying in the one spot now for a while, given the circumstances. But actually, I don't know. I can kind of hear a tiny little bit of an Irish brogue there. Would I be right?
Yes, you would. Newfoundland is an island, and I grew up being, taught by Irish nuns. And I think that a lot of the research that they do on the old Irish airs and the dances and the language, when I was a child, even in university, it was done in Newfoundland because of our isolation. A lot of the old culture stuck. And I remember when I was in first year university, I think I was taken away with the social life. There were boys and it was very exciting, and wouldn't accuse myself of being the most serious student, but I got through one of my courses because there was an American professor who was doing research on skipping rhymes and that sort of thing, and found out that I was a great resource. So I would take my skipping rope to his office, and my contributions to his research saved my grade. So I think we brought a lot of with the potato famine, a lot of Irish immigrants came to Newfoundland. And it's really, I wasn't aware of it till I visited Ireland for the first time, and everyone says, oh, you sound like you might be from here, but not sure where. So I've been gone a very long time from Newfoundland, but I think you go back regularly and you pick it up.
I know. It's a very interesting story, actually, the whole story of the Irish immigrants who left and went to Newfoundland, and kind of, there's a really strong Irish community, isn't there, still in Newfoundland? It's remarkable.
Yes, it's very strong, and a lot of people, going to Ireland feels a bit like a homecoming. Right. And that was the case for me as well.
Right. I'll have to go and visit sometime. It really does sound like a fascinating place full of stories, full of stories. But come here, so I was thinking of you over the weekend. I was thinking of you the last few weeks, actually, with all that we have upon us now in the world, and people are very confused, and it's a kind of a funny time because people are kind of worried, they're frightened, and it can become quite divisive. There's a lot of labelling going on. People think one thing, and then people are confused and wondering and wanting to know what's happening. But I think what happens is maybe people think one thing, they see something, and then they start thinking, and then someone else thinks something else, and then eventually it becomes kind of a lot of labelling. People very, without meaning to, are kind of shutting each other down and out. And I kind of thought, God, I'd love to get you on, because of the whole program that you're running. But also, another curious thing is I actually remembered the last time we spoke here on the show, which was, again, I think it was 2017, because I've noticed this kind of push for everything to be going online, and it's great at the minute, because it's really been a lifesaver in many ways, and has allowed, I suppose, things to continue, a sense of continuity. But I do remember something that stood out the last time we spoke, And, because I was kind of looking at this whole idea of digitalisation, and you were talking about empathy. Actually, I think at the time we had a conference coming on up at our university here in Magee, and it was all about digital empathy. And I do remember talking to you, and you kind of were really... You kind of were resisting a little bit from what I can remember, this idea of digitalisation, maybe about your own work. And you were kind of going, no, we need real people. Anyway, so maybe that's why I kind of wanted, another reason why I wanted to get you on. But maybe tell us a little bit about your work and how it started, Mary.
Sure. Well, our work centres around, we're a children's charity started actually in Canada, but we're right throughout every province of Canada, and we're in 14 countries in 7 languages, soon to be 8. The idea is that to build empathy in children is important because the absence of empathy underscores violence and hatred and all kinds of negative things in society. And my trick, I guess, was realizing some 25 years ago that, yes, I had identified the common thread of the absence of empathy in bullying, in all kinds of cruelty, and actually in violence. But how do you grow it if it's not there? And the Roots of Empathy organization is named after the Roots of Empathy program. And the program is built on how I figured out empathy grows. My belief was that empathy is innate, but it either blooms or fades in the first year of life, depending on how that little baby is nurtured. And it has nothing to do with your station in life, with your bank balance or your education. It has to do with how well the parent or parents are able to respond to that little baby, so that baby feels felt. That baby feels they can trust that adult to take care of them, that their emotional needs are met. And it's basically something that can't be taught. It's something that is caught through relationship. And the whole point of Roots of Empathy is if a child didn't get the full dose or through nobody's fault, but if the child did not get a good relationship, we call it the attachment relationship to the parent, a secure relationship in the first year, that birth should not be destiny, and that we would bring that attachment relationship to their classroom, because it is only through being with and emotion contagion and all of those things that you do develop empathy. There's no flashcard for it, but it's unfair, basically, if a child doesn't have the chance to develop empathy, because it kind of makes every relationship in life hard. It makes, you'll never break a cycle of violence without it, and you can break a cycle of poor parenting. So not that there's any one right way to parent, there's not. But there's, we're kind of like Anna Karina, we're all the one in happiness, but all unique in unhappiness. So Roots of Empathy brings a neighborhood parent and infant, and the baby is just about 2 to 4 months at the beginning of the program. And there's an instructor who visits the family at home, explains everything. There's a very complex curriculum. It's age-specific for the children in primary school. And for over the school year, that parent comes 9 different times. But the Roots of Empathy instructor brings a parent and also comes a week before for a class and a week after. And the idea is the children are guided in observing that little baby's vulnerability, that little baby's way of learning, so they understand neuroscience, that little baby's way of trusting the parent, how everything sort of is sort of managed by the parent. And the children become quite expert at figuring out how the baby is feeling. So we teach the children emotional literacy by learning to recognize the emotional cues of the baby who can't walk or talk. And the magic is there's sort of two pieces to empathy. There's the cognitive aspect, which is perspective taking. And children are absolutely brilliant at that, and classroom teachers do that every single day, perspective taking. But this is a very emotionally grounded perspective taking, and it's like a field trip on a green blanket in their own classroom. And then the other part of empathy is the affective part, and that's key and crucial. That's the part where your emotions are involved and the ethic of care. And when little children, can recognize the vulnerability and the humanity in that little baby in their classroom, they all fall 100% in love with that little baby. They also learn to find their own humanity and the humanity and vulnerability in their friends. And they become very adept at speaking about their own feelings because they've had the experience to speak about the little baby's feelings. And it's all by gosh and by golly. Nobody knows for sure how the baby is feeling, but they do learn, the baby's body language and where is the baby looking and what's the expression and what's the baby's sounds, what are the vocalizations the baby's making. And the children are brilliant at attuning themselves to how the baby is feeling, which is what a secure relationship between the baby and the parent is all about. Can you feel with the baby and respond to the baby? So the gorgeous thing is that the children develop this emotional literacy and empathy. Aggression, bullying, cruelty of all kinds drop way down. And with the research we've got over these 2 decades, stay down. And their social and emotional abilities, the ability to include, to share, to be kind, all of those things, they go up and they stay up. So it sounds very simple, and it is basic human life, but it's actually quite complex to make everything work and come together and to make sure, although every program is unique as the family who visits is unique, there is a consistency and predictability over time, over culture, over geography. It's really about what it is to be human. It's a long answer. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's very, very, very interesting. And I'm just thinking, so really, among the various programs that you do, the focus is on very, very small children or babies. What kind of age of a baby do you tend to bring in?
Well, we want to start with the baby at the most vulnerable. So the baby needs to be between 2 and 4 months of age when you start the program. And normally you start the program in September or October, depending on what part of the world you're in. In your part, it's in the fall. And the children see that baby coming from the stage of having trouble holding their head up, not being able to flip over. So being completely like a beached whale is the one way to understand it, that the baby is totally helpless, that crying basically is their main mode of come and help me, I've got a problem. Up to the baby being almost a year old, and the baby being able to engage with them, the baby being able to laugh, the baby being able to reach. The baby usually is crawling. Most of the babies, interestingly, are not walking, but we chart about 7 different styles of crawling. We chart how the baby's temperament is unique, and you see as the baby grows from 2 to 4 months up to almost a year, the growth that happens in that period, that the children chart themselves, not just the physical growth like the height and the weight, they do measure that, but they're measuring everything else as well, the social and the emotional development. What happens in that first year of life is the biggest jump in learning in every domain of development in the lifespan. It's also the year they're most vulnerable. More people in the world die in the first year of life than in any other year of life. And it's also a way, the reason the baby is so young, it's because there's no threat at all in learning from a little baby. We call them our tiny teachers. They wear a T-shirt that says teacher. So it's really important, and I think the thing is every baby is their own little miracle, and I feel that the birth of a baby is the birth of hope. All the children realize we're all just big babies, and you wouldn't be able to do that if the baby was older. But now, on the other hand, the children, there's a curriculum for the 5-year-olds, and then there's another one for the 7 to 9, and then all the different ages, up to the time the children go to high school. And of course that varies. In the UK, they go to high school earlier than they do in North America. So we work with the school, and the school says what grade level they want. And so they might be talking in Korean, but they all are sitting around a green blanket, and they are all in wonder at the miracle of this little baby and the miracle of love, really. So the research that happens, it might be in German or Spanish, but the outcomes are consistent and predictable and reliable on 4 continents.
Right, so it really is amazing. So it's these tiny little babies, really, and you're working then with. It sounds like most of your groups that you work with would tend to be in the primary schools, so kind of kids that are under 11 or 12, maybe apart from North America, and that's obviously very important. The age.
Well, the thing, yes, I agree with you, and the reason. I think we're never, ever too old. I've been asked to do this in prisons. We're never too old to develop empathy. And the reason, as you say, it's the 11 and under in the UK is because of the structure of education. So everybody says to me, well, we really need this in high school. Well, the reason you're saying that is because that's where most of the displays of aggression appear. That's where the dysfunction is most obvious. And it's not that those kids wouldn't be just as competent as developing empathy, getting a top-up. It's just that it wouldn't be as easy to deliver to the same group of children. And what we love about the primary school children is that they basically are a little community with their classroom teacher over a school year, and that is powerful. So it's basically the closest thing next to a family. And, of course, my belief is that the family is the drop-dead most important institution under the stars. It starts with the family. And next to that, the children's schooling is where they have the next most powerful influence. And yes, you can have your religious community and your physical community are all important, or whatever communities your family is connected to can be very important. Extended family, huge. But the fact that a little child is coming to school 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, is massive influence. So that's why we are in the primary schools. And, in England, we've just gotten a significant long-term commitment to work with the YEF, the Youth Engagement, to try and reduce knife violence, because they realize that the connection between how a child develops empathy in the earlier years has everything to do with how they respond to frustration and hurt, and because anger is only a secondary emotion, and violence later on. So they're investing in us to try and calm all of that knife violence that happens in the late teens and early 20s.
Right, it's really fascinating. It's fascinating, the work that you do, really. And I mean, I know at the minute you're speaking and consulting with governments, educational organisations, public institutions. You're a member of the Order of Canada, the Order of Newfoundland, and also Canada's first Ashoka Fellow. What is the Ashoka Fellowship about?
Well, Ashoka is an organization of social entrepreneurs, and simply meaning by that they tackle and find solutions that work to intractable social problems, and violence is an intractable social problem. And the solution that I came up with, and that's why I was Canada's first Ashoka Fellow, was that I was able to interrupt the cycle of violence and do it in a unique way that nobody had thought of before. And, this group of Ashoka Fellows, they're so fascinating. They're in all domains, they're huge on solving climate problems, and they're, issues of social justice, massive, and really just trying to solve social problems in a way that governments typically don't have the creativity to do and don't have the resources to do. So most of these solutions are not very expensive solutions. My golly, the parent and the baby, that's the gift. That's a very easy thing. So the Order of Canada that you mentioned, it's just that I think in most countries, there is a way to acknowledge a citizen who has had an impact on the civilization. And that's what that is, a recognition. And usually it's scientists who get that, who've come up with medical solutions to problems. And it's interesting that governments are giving awards for innovation now to social solutions, that we have come away, I think, in society to realize that our problems are not just physical. Our problems right now in this world, and as you were saying, digitally, are very much social.
Okay, and I suppose maybe people are looking at this time now. First of all, you've hit the confusion button, and everyone's kind of wondering, worried, confused and stuff. But I guess also we were talking about this earlier, it's also a time that you can kind of pause and just take stock of, where you are in your life, what you're doing, what is this world around me? Am I happy with this world? Is this the kind of world, I want to live in? Or maybe we could, use this time to kind of think about maybe the changes that we would like to see in ourselves, in the world around us, and maybe coming out of this, this is a great opportunity, to do something. And as you say, many of the problems we have, if not most of them, are social.
Yeah, I think it's in many ways an invitation to reflect and collectively sometimes talk about, now that you, as you say, hit the pause button, even though it wasn't our choice to hit the pause button, it does give us an opportunity to really think about what is important in life, what are the irreducible needs of people. They talk about what the essential elements are, and when in society, what stores are essential to stay open. But, my question is, what are the essential attributes and of being a human being, and what is essential to living your life in a not in a serious way, because I think humor is so important, but in an intentional way. And I'm not suggesting we should be meditating every 5 minutes. I'm just saying that love is essential. And I don't know if we've thought about that before so much collectively. Relationships are core. And without the ability to have meaningful relationships, and you don't measure them by the number. It's not a popularity contest like Facebook and all the other things where you count your score to figure out how good you are as a person. It's about how we are able to relate to one another, and that capacity to relate to one another is essential to our happiness. It's essential that we build social trust which you can't do without the ability to relate. And if you don't have social trust, you can't have peaceful societies. Everything builds on the ability to relate, and you can't relate to one another without empathy. So it's really a house of cards. And I think this distilled moment in time collectively is giving the world a chance to stop and listen, to shut up and stop talking, and to start to listen to your own heartbeat and to be able to hear the heartbeat of the others, to be able to identify with the others and what you're talking about, the confusion people feel because nobody's telling you what to do, the disruption of routines which allow you to get on the train of life and get off at the stops that you're supposed to get off. Well, that's not how life is working at the minute. So it's a very, I think, precious moment in time. And, we often say in Roots of Empathy that there is no unimportant day in a child's life. And we tend not to think of it like that. We tend to measure life by the big moments like the birthdays, like the exams, that kind of thing. But actually, the way children develop particularly, but the way any of us develop, any given moment in time has the same kind of impact or could have the same kind of impact. It's just now we're looking at those individual moments in time because we've lost the routines which sort of evaluate or put more import on one moment rather than another. So people have lost their rudder. The compass is not working, and without external people telling you what's important, you have a chance to look at what's core in life is our relationships. So, with so many people dying alone and not being able to hold the hand of a loved one or not to be reassured, it's kind of the ultimate in we come into life and usually we're loved into life. And to have to leave life solo is part of the reality that how we live our life, a lot of it has to do with how we use every moment and how we think of ourselves as a person in relationship with others, or how do we think of ourselves? So this reset button and what life will be like afterwards, I feel very hopeful, to tell you the truth. I think we're going to have a fetish of washing our hands for the next 10 years, which won't be a bad thing. But I think we'll probably value our relationships more and let a lot of the noise get out of our way. So I think people are prepared to have philosophical discussions now, although we're all zoomed out. But they're, I think, more open to be having discussions about what's really important in life. And it's one another.
Right. I mean, beautifully put now there, indeed, because as I was saying earlier, the whole digital world has been fantastic in this in many ways, because it's allowed people to keep connecting. You see lots of people doing things online and stuff like that, but I suppose I'm more of the kind of person who, I'm still one of these kind of geeky people who, well, it's actually the opposite. It's kind of a Luddite nearly, where I kind of prefer to play real CDs, read real books. I mean, I do lots of things online as well, but I like real conversations, with real people. I don't really like conversing online, for example, with people, or on even to a degree Skype and stuff. There's a lot to be said for just having real people, real relationships, meeting people in a real way, maybe as opposed to digitally, because I mean, even people's behaviour, I suppose, the kind of people who are really kind of can be quite active online and can be quite aggressive, and there are people that you meet in everyday life and they're not like that at all. You know, it's a funny one.
Well, I agree with you. You know, I'm not like the alpha generation who are the little ones who are born into a completely digital world. But what we do know is that real communication is about 65% nonverbal. It's your body language, it's your expressions, it's not just your words. And we get lost in a thicket of words. You can really trick people with your words, but you can't trick them when you are full-bodied in front of them. And they, when you are with someone in conversation, I mean, it's a bit better when you're on Skype and there's a visual representation, but it's not as authentic as being in the flesh. And we know that when you are with somebody, what is happening is that you've got the connections going on brain to brain. You've got matching going on brain to brain. You've got a very much deeper connection, and touch is involved with this as well. If you're talking to your child on the phone, you cannot tell as much how they are doing. You just ache to be able to be with them, to hold them, to see what their eyes are telling you, to see what they're fidgeting. If they're chewing the cuff of their T-shirt, the neckband, or are they twisting their hair? All these signs that let you know, as a parent who's tuned into your child's, their stress level and all of that, you cannot tell unless you're there physically with them. So, you have a far deeper connection when you are person to person in a communication than when you're on Zoom or just on a phone line. So we're robbing ourselves, not that we want to be, but if our communications are exclusively digital, we're robbed, we're cheated, it's efficient. And, I mean, we're not going back to the cave times, but there's huge efficiencies which won't go away. But to live your life online is to rob yourself of the joy of human connection. And it's not just the joy, it's our health. That we are mentally healthy when we are able to connect in real ways with people, which change our body chemistry, which increase, all the good hormones. We even know that when you are in pain, if you have someone with whom you have a friendship, or basically someone who loves you, they're holding your hand literally dulls the pain. I mean, you can say, if you like, love dulls pain. It dulls suffering of all kinds, and we rob ourselves of that if we live our lives online exclusively. So I think there's going to be, yes, we've had a pandemic of a virus, but I think we have a pandemic of loneliness that's growing and mounting equally with it. And I think there'll be an explosion of connection when we get out of our lockdown, because the doors have been shut, but the hearts haven't been shut. And I think we don't have to be shut-ins emotionally. And, it's a real chance to tell people how we feel about them. It's a real chance to share our vulnerabilities. We are all equally vulnerable at the minute. So, why not say so? Can you imagine starting a conversation? Well, I had my coffee alone this morning, and I'm really used to having coffee with my mates at work. And I miss that. And I miss them. And I never realized how much I enjoy our banter over a cup of coffee. And it's just not the same online.
Right. It's funny now you should say that, because someone was just saying to me the other day, God, you know what I really miss? And they were talking about the coffee, they miss just the coffee. And also a few different people have kind of said to me recently about consumerism. They're kind of going like, God, I'm just starting to realise all these things that I have, all this stuff that I needed. I needed to look like this, I needed to buy this, to feel like this. They were going like, after this, they were just saying, I just realised all these things. Like a number of different people have said that to me in different ages. I mean, so you kind of wonder, where we're at now, like, are we in danger of kind of commodifying ourselves to a degree with so much, consumerism and all that, and the whole digital world? Like, are people actually commodifying themselves by their online behaviour?
Well, I think you really nailed it, because a lot of people are calling into question their values, and there is so much pressure on, even on, young people to have the right running shoes and the current haircut and all that. There is that pressure, and I think that has been somewhat removed, and we get out the magnifying glass to see who are we, what do we care about, who do we care about. And I would like to think that we have gotten somewhat in control of how we spend our money and how we spend our time, and the latter obviously being the most important. So I really identify with what you say. You look around and say, for God's sake, why did I buy that? What was I thinking? Who am I anyway? And the decluttering, not just of stuff, your junk in your house, but of what you believe in and what you think and what's important. So I think this shutdown can be a creative thing. Now, I've had enough of it, to tell you the truth. I'm ready to rock and roll, but I do think that we collectively can look at, do we need all the things that commodifying? Do we need all these things in our life? Or do we need to make more space in our life for the people we care about? Or what about the people we've yet to meet? And the topic of our conversations, there's only so much time we have in this world. And how have we used it? Has it been constructive? Not that we have to have purposeful engagement. I really feel there's a lot of pressure on people to be chronically having not just the latest in technology, but having the latest in what should you be thinking about. So I think the simplification and the humanizing of how we live our lives, it's like going into, the woods and camping for a week, except this has gone on for a month. You really have to come to terms with yourself. Do you like yourself? Do you like the fact that you buy stuff every week? We still love our coffee, but what we really loved most about the coffee was who we shared it with. So I think laughter is essential. Relationships are essential, and I think people are longing for that. And we're going to see unprecedented, I think, creativity from this pandemic, because really it will catalyze all sorts of social change, because we're going to become critical of things we don't like in our life, and we're going to change them. I mean, we have pop-up hospitals. Did you ever imagine in your life there would be a pop-up hospital? Yes, we've got pop-up stores for the commodities you're talking about, but pop-up hospitals, how creative is that? So I think there will be good things that come out of this. But the navel-gazing is an important part of it.
Okay, interesting. So we'll have time enough for another while, it looks like, to do some more of the navel gazing. But as you say, it's a great time to be able to just stop and reflect and see, look at our lives, look at what we're doing, and what's working, maybe what isn't working. And actually an important element, we haven't much time left, but a very important element of the Roots of Empathy curriculum, and you can check that out at rootsofempathy.org, really is the arts. Many of the activities. Now, it's actually almost like, in a way, it's the STEAM agenda that, there's a little bit of science, technology. Well, I'm saying that as in, pupils use maths to calculate and chart the baby's weight and measurements. Also literature used as a way to open the door to feelings and perspective taken, and then the discussion and reflection that follows from doing some of these activities builds solidarity and empathy. And art also plays a large role. how does art and arts and music and things work with the programme? Just briefly.
Oh, I'm so happy you asked me about that, because I really think music builds solidarity. It's not choral music and it's not wonderful music, but we use music a lot. For example, when the family and the little baby arrive, the children are gathered around a green blanket and they all stand up and they sing what they call their anthem. It's a welcome song to the little baby. And all the children sing the song. So here you have this emotional soup, because when we sing together, I mean, there's science on this. You're singing to that little baby. You're saying, hello, baby James, how are you? And everybody's singing it together. And that parent walks the baby, the inside of the circle, walks the baby around to greet every single child. And the child has a chance, and we even ask the parents, go slow, please count to 3. So every child has a chance to sing to that baby directly. The baby gazes at that child, and the baby's little feet are bare, so the children get to hold the baby's feet. Now, we do the feet because of germs and all, but the power of music, the power of human touch, the power of the connection of the gaze, immediately the oxytocin levels in the children, that's the hug hormone, I call it. It's the positive relational hormone goes up with each child. We sing the baby out. Goodbye, baby Liam. See you soon. See you soon. And 3 times during that visit, which is usually about 45 minutes, the children sing a song to the baby, whether it's an active rhyme, and they're guided to watch the baby's reaction. And they have the mom, usually the mom, but often we get lucky and you can get a mom and dad, or sometimes just the dad, depending on the working situation at home. But when the parent sings to the baby, because we have the parents sing their favorite song to the baby, the children melt, because they see how the baby, I mean, it's the most beautiful moment, how the baby is in love with the parent and the parent with the baby. And the thing about children, no matter how young they are, they know when they're in the presence of love. And the parent-baby relationship is the best model of empathy we have in the world. So we use music a lot. And, sometimes life is busy and parents haven't taught the children the nursery rhymes, and you lose the whole culture. So wherever we are in the world, and of course your culture is so rich in music, we teach the children the traditional airs of their place. And then in terms of art, we do a lot of art because
we've about 10 seconds left. I don't want to cut you short.
No, go ahead.
So come here, we'll love to have you back again now sometime in the near future. I hope maybe you won't be maybe you will be jet setting, but anyway, lovely chatting to you today. Thanks so much for coming on, and look forward to chatting to you very soon, Mary.
And Eileen, we're just 10 years now in Northern Ireland, so thank you, and lovely to talk to you as well.
Okay, take care now. Take care.
Okay,
thanks.
Bye.